The bridge of the massive warship Dominator hummed with quiet power as it cut through the darkness of space. Admiral Krixtal stood 7 feet tall, his green-scaled skin gleaming under the dim lights. His yellow eyes watched the star maps with the patience of a born hunter. Sharp claws tapped against the metal railing as he studied the reports flowing across his personal display. The Vorthak Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their black warships were feared by every known species. When the Vorthak fleet appeared in a system, planets surrendered without firing a shot. Those foolish enough to resist were quickly reminded why the Vorthak were considered the apex predators of space. "Admiral, we have new intelligence from the outer colonies," announced Captain Velcor, his second-in-command. The younger Vorthak approached with military precision, his own scales bearing the ritual scars of 100 battles. Krixtal turned his massive head toward his captain. "What news from the frontier?" "Our scouts have identified a new species expanding into the Kepler sector. They call themselves humans." Velcor handed over a data tablet containing the preliminary reports. The Admiral's claws clicked as he scrolled through the information. Images of pale, pink-skinned creatures appeared on the screen. They looked soft and weak, with no natural weapons or armor. Their ships appeared crude and angular, built more like cargo haulers than proper warships. "Interesting," Krixtal rumbled, his voice carrying the low growl that all Vorthak possessed. "They seem to be spreading quickly for such a primitive species." "Yes, Admiral. In the past 50 years, they have established colonies on 17 worlds in that sector. Their expansion rate is unusual for a pre-warp civilization." Krixtal studied the tactical data more carefully. The human ships used what appeared to be basic chemical propulsion systems. Their energy signatures suggested simple fusion reactors. Their weapons readings showed nothing more advanced than crude plasma, cannons, and primitive missile systems. "Have they made contact with any other species?" the Admiral asked. "Limited contact with the Zalani traders and some mining consortiums. They appear to be peaceful traders, mostly interested in raw materials and agricultural products." The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed. "Peaceful traders who expand this quickly? That seems unlikely." Around the bridge, other Vorthak officers continued their duties with practiced efficiency. The Dominator was the pride of the fleet, stretching nearly 2 miles from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in the distinctive black armor that made Vorthak ships instantly recognizable across the galaxy. Massive plasma cannons lined its sides, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. "What do we know about their military capabilities?" Krixtal continued his questioning. "Very limited, Admiral. Our long-range scans suggest they have some form of defensive fleet, but nothing that registers as a serious threat. Their largest vessels appear to be less than half the size of our standard cruisers." Krixtal handed the tablet back to his captain. "And their population? Difficult to estimate precisely, but intelligence suggests somewhere around 12 billion individuals, spread across their 17 colonies plus their homeworld." 12 billion, the Admiral repeated thoughtfully. "A significant population for such a young spacefaring race." The bridge's main view screen showed the endless stars of the galaxy. Each point of light represented systems that had felt the power of the Vorthak Empire. Some had submitted peacefully and now served as tribute worlds. Others had tried to resist and were now nothing but asteroid fields and cautionary tales. "Admiral," interrupted Communications Officer Thyssera, "we are receiving new orders from High Command." "Display them." The orders appeared on the main screen, in the flowing script of the Vorthak language. Admiral Krixtal read them quickly, his expression growing more interested as he processed the information. "High Command wants us to investigate these humans more closely," he announced to the bridge crew. "It seems their rapid expansion has caught the attention of the Imperial War Council." Captain Velcor moved closer to his commander. "Are we to make contact, Admiral? We are to determine if they pose any potential threat to Imperial interests. If they prove hostile or uncooperative..." Krixtal let the implication hang in the air. Every officer on the bridge understood what happened to species that failed to show proper respect to the Vorthak Empire. "Shall I prepare the third battle? Group for deployment?" Velcor asked. "Yes. 12 ships should be more than sufficient for a first contact mission with such a primitive species." The Admiral's claws clicked against the railing again. "We will follow standard protocol. Approach their territory, make contact with their leadership, and present them with the choice." The choice was always the same for newly discovered species. Submit to Vorthak authority, accept Imperial protection, pay the required tribute, and live in peace under Imperial rule. Or resist and face the consequences. Throughout the bridge, officers began preparing for the mission. Navigation plotted. Courses to the Kepler sector. Weapon systems ran diagnostic checks. Communications prepared standard first contact protocols in multiple languages. Admiral Krixtal walked to the massive forward viewport and gazed out at the stars. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had overseen the integration of 47 different species into the Empire. Some had been wise enough to surrender immediately. Others had required more convincing. The humans would likely fall into the first category. Their technology was clearly inferior, their military capabilities limited. Most peaceful trading species recognized the wisdom of Imperial protection once they understood the alternative. "Admiral, the battle group is ready to depart." "Captain," Velcor reported. "Excellent. Set course for the Kepler sector. We will begin with their outermost colony and work our way toward their core systems." Krixtal turned back to his command chair. "I want full scans of every human vessel we encounter. Catalog their technology, their defensive capabilities, their population centers." "Yes, Admiral. How long do you estimate this operation will take?" Krixtal settled into his chair, his massive frame filling the specially designed seat. "Given their primitive technology, perhaps a few weeks to establish contact and negotiate terms. Another month to set up the tribute system and administrative oversight." The Dominator and its escort vessels began their journey toward human space. Behind them, the vast machinery of the Vorthak Empire continued its eternal work of conquest and expansion. Tribute flowed from hundreds of worlds to fuel the Imperial war machine. Millions of subjugated species worked to support the Vorthak vision of galactic order. None of them suspected that this routine first contact mission would change everything. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Admiral Krixtall reviewed the human intelligence reports one more time. The creatures in the images looked so fragile, so helpless. Their ships seemed crude and inefficient. Their worlds appeared lightly defended. It would be almost too easy. The Admiral closed the reports and settled, back in his command chair. Soon these humans would learn what countless other species had learned before them. In this galaxy, there was only one apex predator. There was only one species that truly mattered. The Vorthak Empire would endure forever, fed by the tribute of lesser races and protected by the most powerful military force in known space. These humans would simply be the latest addition to their vast collection of subject species. Admiral Krixtall closed his yellow eyes and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Another easy victory awaited. Another primitive species would bow before imperial might. He had no way of knowing that his assumptions about humans would prove to be catastrophically wrong. The Vorthak battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler sector with military precision. 12 massive black warships hung in space like hungry predators, their dark hulls absorbing the light from the distant star. Admiral Krixtall watched the tactical displays as his fleet's sensors began scanning the system. "Admiral, we are detecting multiple artificial structures in this system," reported Sensor Officer Nixith from his station. "Several orbital platforms around, the fourth planet, and what appears to be a small fleet of vessels." Krixtall leaned forward in his command chair. "Show me." The main view screen shifted to display long-range sensor data. The human colony world appeared as a blue-green sphere with several space stations in orbit. The structures looked functional, but unremarkable. More interesting were the ships moving between the stations and the planet's surface. "How many vessels?" the Admiral asked. "Approximately 15 ships of various sizes. Most appear to be cargo haulers or civilian transports. However, we are detecting 5 vessels that show military characteristics." Captain Velcor studied his own displays. "Their energy signatures are unusual, Admiral. The power readings are much higher than we expected from their technology level." "Higher how?" "Their fusion reactors appear to be producing 3 times the energy output our intelligence predicted. Either our information was wrong, or they have made recent improvements to their technology." Admiral Krixtall considered this information. It was not uncommon for intelligence reports to be outdated, especially regarding primitive species that might advance quickly. Still, the Vorthak fleet's firepower was overwhelming compared to anything these humans could possibly field. "Move us into the system. Standard approach formation. I want to see these humans for myself." The Vorthak fleet began moving toward the inner system, their engines creating brilliant blue streams of light. As they approached, the human vessels began responding to their presence. The civilian ships quickly moved toward the safety of the orbital stations, while the military vessels took up defensive positions. "They are hailing us, Admiral," announced Communications Officer Thysera. "On screen." The view screen shifted to show a human face. The creature appeared young by human standards, with dark hair and brown eyes. He wore what looked like a military uniform, though it was much simpler than the elaborate armor favored by Vorthak officers. This is Captain Jinwoo of the United Earth vessel Soul's Pride. You have entered New Sol system space. Please state your intentions. Admiral Krixtal rose from his chair, his 7-foot frame dominating the bridge. When he spoke, his voice carried the natural growl that made all Vorthak sound threatening. I am Admiral Krixtal of the Vorthak Imperial Navy. You will surrender your vessels and prepare to receive Imperial representatives. Your species will be evaluated for integration into the Vorthak Empire. The human captain's expression remained calm. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Admiral. This system is under Earth jurisdiction. However, we welcome peaceful contact and trade discussions. Several Vorthak officers exchanged glances. It was unusual for a primitive species to refuse Imperial demands so directly. Most showed fear when first encountering Vorthak warships. You misunderstand the situation, Krixtal continued. This is not a negotiation. You will surrender or you will be destroyed. These are your only options. Captain Jinwoo appeared to be listening to someone off-screen before responding. Admiral, I've consulted with my superiors. We respectfully decline your offer. If you wish to establish diplomatic relations, we can arrange for proper contact through our embassy services. The bridge of the Dominator fell silent. No species had ever politely declined Imperial demands. It was unthinkable. Captain, Krixtal's voice grew more menacing. You have exactly 1 hour to reconsider your position. During that time, I suggest you scan our vessels and consider your military situation carefully. Thank you for the time, Admiral. We'll use it wisely. The communication ended. Admiral Krixtal stared at the blank screen for several seconds before turning to his tactical officer. What do our scans show about their defensive capabilities? The 5 military vessels are smaller than our cruisers, but larger than our intelligence, suggested. They appear to have some form of defensive shielding, though we cannot determine its strength from this distance. Their weapons are not clearly visible, but we are detecting unusual energy patterns. Captain Velcor approached his commander. Admiral, their behavior is strange. Either they are incredibly brave, or they know something we do not. Or they are simply ignorant of our capabilities, Krixtal replied. Many primitive species react with false bravado when first encountering superior technology. They believe their home system advantages will protect them. During the hour that followed, both fleets remained in position. The Vorthak ships maintained their intimidating formation while running continuous scans. The human vessels spread out into what appeared to be a defensive pattern, though their movements seemed random to Vorthak tactical analysis. Admiral, Sensor Officer Nixith reported, the human ships are performing unusual maneuvers. They keep changing position and speed in patterns that make no tactical sense. Perhaps they are confused or frightened, suggested Captain Velcor. Or testing something, Krixtal mused. Continue monitoring. As the hour approached its end, communications. Officer Thisera announced an incoming message from the human fleet. On screen, Captain Jinwoo appeared again, looking as calm as before. Admiral Krixtal, we have used the time you provided to prepare our response. We must ask you to leave this system immediately. If you refuse, we will be forced to defend ourselves. The Vorthak bridge erupted in what could only be described as amused growling. The idea that these tiny ships could threaten the mighty Dominator and her escorts was absurd. "Captain," Krixtall said with obvious amusement, "you command 5 small vessels. I command 12 warships, each one larger and more powerful than your entire fleet combined. Are you certain you wish to resist?" "We are certain, Admiral." "Very well. You have chosen destruction over wisdom. Do not say you were not warned." Krixtall cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their military vessels. Fire a warning shot across the bow of their lead ship. Perhaps a demonstration of our power will restore their sanity." "Yes, Admiral." The Dominator's forward plasma cannon charged with a deep humming sound that resonated through the ship's hull. The weapon fired, sending a brilliant bolt of superheated plasma streaming toward the human fleet. The shot passed exactly where it was intended, just ahead of Captain Jinwoo's ship. The plasma bolt should have been close enough to overwhelm their sensors and demonstrate the futility of resistance. Instead, something unexpected happened. The human ship moved. Not the slow, lumbering movement of most spacecraft, but a sudden, sharp acceleration that seemed to violate basic physics. The Soul's Pride shot sideways at a speed that should have crushed any organic crew, avoiding the plasma bolt by mere meters. "What was that?" Admiral Krixtall demanded. "Sir, the human vessel just accelerated at over 200 gravities," Nix reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "No organic crew could survive that kind of acceleration. Impossible. Check your sensors." "Sensors confirm, Admiral. All 5 human military vessels are now moving in evasive patterns at accelerations that should be lethal to any crew." "Captain," Velcor studied his tactical display with growing concern. "Admiral, if they can move like that, our targeting solutions may be compromised." Before Krixtall could respond, Communications Officer Thysera announced another incoming message. Captain Jinwoo appeared on screen again, but now his expression had hardened. "Admiral, that was your warning shot. This is mine." The communication ended just as proximity alarms began sounding throughout the Vorthak fleet. The proximity alarms screaming through the Dominator created chaos on the bridge as officers scrambled to understand what was happening. Admiral Krixtall gripped his command chair as the massive warship shuddered from an impact that should have been impossible. "Report!" he roared over the noise. "Sir, something struck our port shields," Tactical Officer Zepham called out, his claws dancing over his control panel. "Energy discharge consistent with a directed particle beam, but the signature is unlike anything in our databases." "Where did it come from?" "Unknown, Admiral. Our sensors detected no weapon firing sequence from any of the human vessels." Captain Velcor was studying his own displays with growing alarm. "Admiral, the human ships are moving in patterns that our targeting computers cannot track. They appear to be teleporting." On the main view screen, the 5 human vessels darted through space like living creatures rather than mechanical ships. They moved with impossible grace, changing direction and speed in ways that defied everything the Vorthak knew about space combat. "Teleporting is impossible," Krixtall stated flatly. "They must be using some form of advanced propulsion we have not encountered before." "Sir, Communications Officer Thisera interrupted. "The human captain is hailing us again. On screen." "Captain." Jinwoo appeared once more, but his calm demeanor had been replaced by something harder and more focused. Behind him, the bridge of his ship looked surprisingly similar to a Vorthak command center, with multiple officers working at various stations. "Admiral Crixtull, that was a warning shot. Our weapons are locked onto your vessels. You have one final chance to withdraw from this system peacefully." The bridge of the Dominator fell silent. The idea that these small human ships could threaten 12 Vorthak warships was beyond comprehension. "Captain," Crixtull said slowly, "you fired upon an Imperial vessel. This act of aggression cannot be overlooked. Prepare to face the consequences of your actions." "We're prepared, Admiral. The question is, are you?" The transmission ended. "Admiral." Crixtull turned to his weapons officer with deadly calm. "Target all human military vessels. Full spread of plasma cannons. Destroy them." "Yes, Admiral." The Vorthak fleet opened fire with the coordinated precision that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Dozens of plasma bolts streaked through space toward the human ships, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city. The human vessels began moving. What happened next would be discussed in Vorthak military academies for generations to come. The 5 human ships seemed to dance between the plasma bolts, their movements so perfectly timed that they appeared to know where each shot would be before it was fired. "Impossible," Captain Velcor whispered. "They are avoiding every shot." "Keep firing!" Crixtull commanded. The Vorthak ships continued their bombardment, pouring enough firepower into the void to destroy a small moon. The human vessels continued their impossible dance, dodging between energy beams with precision that seemed almost mocking. Then they fired back. The first indication that something was wrong came from the cruiser Devastator, positioned on the fleet's left flank. Captain Morgeth's voice crackled over the communications channel. "Dominator, we are taking fire. Our shields are being penetrated. How is this possible?" Admiral Crixtull watched in horror as strange blue-white beams lanced out from the human ships. The weapons looked small and insignificant compared to Vorthak plasma cannons, but when they struck Vorthak shields, something terrible happened. The beams passed through the energy barriers as if they were not there. "Sir," Tactical Officer Zephyman reported, his voice shaking, "the human weapons appear to be phasing through our shield frequencies. They are striking hull plating directly." On the tactical display, the Devastator was showing multiple hull breaches. The massive cruiser, which had never been seriously damaged in over 2 centuries of combat, was being torn apart by weapons that barely registered on Vorthak sensors. "Return fire! Concentrate all weapons on the lead human vessel," Crixtull ordered. The entire Vorthak fleet focused their guns on Captain Jinwoo's ship, the Soul's Pride. The amount of energy directed at the single human vessel would have been enough to crack a planet's crust. The human ship accelerated directly into the storm of plasma fire. "What is it doing?" Captain Velcor asked in disbelief. The Soul's Pride moved through the weapons fire like it was flying through empty space. Plasma bolts that should have vaporized the ship seemed to bend around it, deflected by shields that appeared far more advanced than anything the humans were supposed to possess. Sir, the human vessel is approaching at attack speed, Sensor Officer Nixth announced. It is heading directly for us. All weapons, target that ship. Maximum power. The Dominator's main guns swiveled to track the approaching human vessel. Every plasma cannon, particle beam, and missile launcher on the massive dreadnought focused on the single ship racing toward them. The human ship opened fire. The bridge of the Dominator went dark as primary power failed. Emergency lighting bathed everything in red as damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. "Report!" Admiral Krickstall shouted over the alarms. "Primary shield generators are offline," Zepham called out. "Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. We have lost main weapons control." "How? How is this possible?" Before anyone could answer, another voice cut through the chaos. Communications Officer Thisera was listening to reports from the rest of the fleet. "Admiral, the Devastator is requesting immediate assistance. They have lost engines and life support. The Conqueror reports similar damage. Sir, the Bloodhawk is gone." "Gone?" "Destroyed, Admiral. The humans cut through her hull plating in less than 30 seconds. Admiral Krickstall stared at the tactical display in numb shock. 3 of his finest warships had been crippled or destroyed in minutes by 5 vessels that should not have been able to scratch their paint. "Sir," Sensor Officer Nixith said quietly, "the human ships have stopped firing. They are holding position around our fleet." On the view screen, the 5 human vessels hung in space like predators surrounding wounded prey. Their sleek, angular hulls showed no signs of damage despite the tremendous firepower that had been directed at them. The communication channel activated, and Captain Jinwoo's face appeared once more. His expression was calm again. But there was something different in his eyes now, something that made Admiral Krickstall's blood run cold. "Admiral Krickstall, your weapons are no longer a threat to us. Your ships are disabled, but not destroyed. Your crews are alive, but vulnerable. I strongly suggest you listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you." The Vorthak bridge was silent, except for the steady beeping of damage alarms. Every officer stared at the human captain with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "You came here expecting to find a primitive species that would bow to your superior technology and firepower. You were wrong about us, Admiral. Very wrong." Krickstall found his voice. "What are you?" "We are humans, Admiral. We are explorers, builders, and protectors. We are also, when necessary, very effective soldiers. Your empire has spent centuries terrorizing other species. That ends now. You cannot defeat the entire Vorthak Empire with 5 ships." Captain Jinwoo smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Admiral, these 5 ships just defeated 12 of your best warships in less than 10 minutes. How many ships do you think we actually have?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. For the first time in his 3 centuries of military service, Admiral Krickstall felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Pure, overwhelming fear of an enemy he did not understand, could not predict, and apparently could not defeat. The apex predator had just discovered that there was something higher on the food chain. Admiral Krickstall sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed his once mighty fleet crippled and helpless. 3 ships destroyed, 6 heavily damaged, and the remaining 3 barely functional. The human vessels continued to circle them like sharks around wounded prey. "Sir," Captain Velcor said quietly, "we are receiving damage reports from all vessels. The humans targeted our weapons and engines with surgical precision. They could have destroyed us all, but they chose not to." "Why?" Krixtal asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Before Velcor could respond, the communication channel activated again. This time, a different human appeared on the screen. This one was older, with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to see everything. "Admiral Krixtal, I am Captain Minho of the vessel Busan Runner. I want to make something very clear to you. We did not destroy your fleet because we choose not to kill when it is not necessary. This is not weakness. This is strength." Krixtal forced himself to speak. "What do you want from us? We want you to leave this system and return to your empire. We want you to tell your leaders exactly what happened here. Most importantly, we want you to understand that your days of terrorizing peaceful species are over. You cannot patrol the entire galaxy with 5 ships." Captain Minho's expression remained calm. "Who said we only have 5 ships?" As if summoned by his words, new contacts began appearing on the Vorthak sensors. First 1, then 5, then dozens of human vessels dropped out of hyperspace around the crippled Vorthak fleet. They appeared from every direction, surrounding the Imperial ships in a perfect sphere of firepower. "Impossible," Sensor Officer Nixith whispered. "Where did they come from? Our long-range sensors detected nothing." "Your sensors cannot detect our stealth systems," Captain Minho explained. "We have been watching your empire for quite some time, Admiral. We know about your conquest of the Altair colonies. We know about the destruction of the Kepler mining stations. We know about the slave markets on Vorthak Prime." The bridge fell silent. The humans had intelligence about operations that were supposed to be classified at the highest levels of Imperial command. "How long have you been watching us?" Krixtal asked. "Long enough to know that your empire is built on fear and oppression. Long enough to decide that it needs to change." On the tactical display, more human ships continued to arrive. They were of different sizes and configurations, some appearing to be warships while others looked like support vessels. All of them moved with the same impossible grace that had allowed the first 5 ships to destroy the Vorthak fleet. Captain Velcor leaned close to his admiral. "Sir, we count over 50 human vessels now. If each one has the same capabilities as the ships we just fought, then we are facing a military force beyond our comprehension." Krixtal finished the thought. Another human appeared on the communication screen. This one was younger, a woman with short dark hair and the bearing of a professional soldier. "Admiral, I am Captain Huna of the Incheon Striker. My ship is equipped with specialized systems for disabling enemy vessels without destroying them. Would you like a demonstration?" Before Krixtal could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the Dominator. Every system on the massive dreadnought began shutting down in sequence. Weapons, engines, life support, communications. Everything went dark except for emergency power. "What did you do?" Krixtal demanded. "We temporarily disabled your ships." "Computer systems," Captain Huna explained calmly. We can restore them at any time, or we can make the shutdown permanent. The choice is yours. Throughout the Vorthak fleet, the same thing was happening. One by one, the Imperial warships went dark as human technology overwhelmed their systems. The crew members could do nothing but watch as their advanced vessels became helpless metal shells floating in space. "This is impossible," Captain Velcor said. "Our computer systems are protected by quantum encryption. Nothing should be able to penetrate them." "Your quantum encryption is approximately 200 years behind our current technology," Captain Hyuna replied. "We broke your codes before you finished transmitting them." Admiral Krickstall felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of military service. Complete and total helplessness. His fleet, his weapons, his technology, all of it was useless against these humans. "What do you want?" he asked again. Captain Minho's face reappeared on the screen. "We want you to deliver a message to your empire, Admiral. Tell them that humanity is now actively protecting this sector of space. Any Vorthak vessel that approaches human territory or attacks any peaceful species will be disabled and escorted away. And if we refuse, then you will discover just how many ships we actually have and just how advanced our weapons really are." The tactical display showed the human fleet continuing to grow. Ships appeared from directions that should have been empty space, materializing as if they had been invisible. The formation was perfect, coordinated with a precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. "How many ships do you have?" Krickstall asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "Enough," Captain Minho replied simply. Suddenly, the Dominator's systems began coming back online. Lights returned, air circulation resumed, and the tactical displays flickered back to life. The human captain had restored their systems as easily as he had disabled them. "Your ships are functional again, Admiral. You are free to leave this system and return to Vorthak space. However, I should warn you that any attempt to send reinforcements or return with additional forces will be met with a much less friendly response." Captain Velcor was studying his sensor readings with growing amazement. "Admiral, our sensors are now detecting human vessels throughout this entire sector. They are everywhere." "How many?" "I cannot get an accurate count. The stealth systems make it impossible to determine their true numbers. But I am reading energy signatures consistent with at least 300 vessels. 300 ships. The number was staggering. The entire Vorthak battle fleet consisted of less than 200 vessels, and those were spread across dozens of systems maintaining Imperial control. "Admiral," Captain Minho continued, "I want you to understand something important. We did not seek this conflict. We would have been happy to coexist peacefully with your empire. But your actions against innocent species forced our hand." "What actions?" "The massacre at the Centauri research station, the enslavement of the Rigel colonies, the destruction of the civilian transports in the Vega system. Should I continue?" Each incident Captain Minho mentioned was a classified Imperial military operation. The humans not only knew about them, they had detailed intelligence about activities that even most Vorthak officers were not aware of. "You have been planning this for a long time," Krickstall realized. "We have been preparing, yes. We hoped it would not be necessary, but your Empire's actions made intervention inevitable. Another human voice joined the conversation. This time it was a man with a calm, measured tone that somehow made his words even more frightening. "Admiral, I am Captain Daeho of the vessel Gwangju Sentinel. 5 years ago, your forces attacked a peaceful research colony in the Kepler system. 347 scientists and their families were killed. Among them were my wife and daughter." The bridge of the Dominator fell completely silent. Every Vorthak officer understood the implications of what they were hearing. "I want you to know, Admiral, that we could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 30 seconds of combat. We chose not to, because we are not like you. We do not kill for pleasure or conquest, but make no mistake, if you force us to choose between your lives and the lives of innocent beings, the choice will be easy." Admiral Krixtall closed his yellow eyes and tried to process what had happened. His mighty fleet had been defeated by an enemy he did not understand. Worse, that enemy had shown mercy when they could have shown destruction. "The Vorthak Empire will not forget this humiliation," he said finally. "We're counting on it, Captain," Minho replied. "Remember it well, Admiral. Remember it and learn from it. The galaxy is changing, and your empire can either change with it or be left behind." The human fleet began to withdraw, their ships fading from sensors as their stealth systems engaged. Within minutes, only the original 5 vessels remained, visible, holding position around the crippled Vorthak fleet. Admiral Krixtall realized that the hunter had become the hunted, and the prey had turned out to be far more dangerous than any predator. The news of Admiral Krixtall's defeat spread through Vorthak space like wildfire. On the imperial capital world of Vorthak Prime, the High Command gathered in emergency session within the black stone walls of the War Council chamber. The massive room was filled with the Empire's most powerful military leaders, their scales gleaming under the harsh lights as they struggled to understand what had happened. General Zephyr stood at the center of the chamber, his massive frame casting shadows. Across the war table, at nearly 8 feet tall, he was larger than most Vorthak, his scales bearing the deep scars of countless battles. His yellow eyes burned with barely controlled rage as he read the reports from the Kepler sector. 12 warships, he growled, his voice echoing off the stone walls. 12 of our finest vessels defeated by 5 primitive human ships. This is impossible. The reports have been verified by 3 separate sources, Admiral Morketh replied from across the table. Admiral Krixtall's testimony matches the censor. Logs and communication records. The humans possess technology far beyond our initial estimates. Then our intelligence was wrong. General Zephyr slammed his clawed fist on the metal surface. How could we be so completely mistaken about a species we have been observing for months? Perhaps they were hiding their true capabilities, suggested Admiral Velthis, one of the few female officers in the High Command. Many species attempt to appear weaker than they are when first contacted by the Empire. No species has ever successfully hidden technology of this level, Zephyr replied. Their ships moved at accelerations that should be impossible. Their weapons penetrated our shields as if they were not there. Their stealth systems made our sensors useless. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vorthak Empire had built its power on technological superiority, If humans possessed better technology, then everything the Empire stood for was at risk. "What are your recommendations, General?" asked Supreme Commander Thraken, the oldest and most experienced military leader in the Empire. "We deploy the Worldbreaker," Zephyr said without hesitation. "We take our most powerful vessel, gather the largest fleet we can assemble, and we crush these humans before they can spread their influence further." "The Worldbreaker has not been used in over 50 years, Admiral Morketh pointed out. "It was designed to destroy entire worlds, not fight ship-to-ship battles." "Then we will destroy their worlds," Zephyr replied coldly. "We will show the galaxy what happens to species that dare to resist Imperial authority." While the Vorthak High Command planned their response, something else was happening throughout their territory. Human ships began appearing in Vorthak space. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply watched. Captain Thisakar of the patrol cruiser Dark Talon was the first to encounter them. His ship was conducting routine patrol duties in the Outer Rim when his sensors detected an unknown contact. "Sir, we have a vessel on long-range sensors," reported his tactical officer. "Configuration unknown, but the energy signature matches the reports from the Kepler incident." "Human?" Captain Thisakar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Most likely, sir." "Open a communication channel." The view screen activated, showing the bridge of a human vessel. A young woman with short black hair looked back at them with calm, professional eyes. "Captain Thisakar, I am Captain Somin of the reconnaissance vessel Daegu Shadow. We are conducting peaceful observation of this sector." "You are in Imperial space without authorization," Thisakar replied, trying to project the authority that had always worked with other species. "You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Captain Soman's expression did not change. "We will continue our observations. However, we have no intention of interfering with your normal operations. You cannot simply ignore Imperial law." "We are not subject to Imperial law. We are monitoring Vorthak military activities to ensure they do not threaten peaceful species in this region." The communication ended, leaving Captain Thisakar staring at a blank screen. He ordered his crew to target the human vessel, but when they fired, their weapons struck empty space. The human ship had vanished from all sensors as if it had never been there. For the next hour, Captain Thisakar's crew searched frantically for the human vessel. They found nothing. No energy signatures, no engine trails, no trace that it had ever existed. But somehow, every member of the crew knew it was still there, watching them. Similar encounters began occurring throughout Vorthak space. Human ships would appear without warning, observe Vorthak activities, and then vanish when approached. They never attacked, never threatened, but their presence was felt everywhere. The psychological effect on Vorthak crews was devastating. "Sir, the crew is requesting reassignment," Lieutenant Mordek reported to Captain Thisakar after a week of failed attempts to locate the human observers. "They say they cannot perform their duties while being watched by invisible enemies." "Tell them to focus on their work," Thisakar replied, though he understood their feelings. The knowledge that human eyes were watching their every move was affecting him as well. "Sir, 3 crew members have reported to medical with stress-related conditions. Chief Engineer Zektar refuses to leave his quarters. Captain Thisakar rubbed his scaled forehead with his claws. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen his crew in such a state. The Vorthak were predators, bred for combat and conquest. But being hunted by an invisible enemy was breaking their spirits. The situation was the same throughout the Imperial fleet. Ships reported mechanical failures as crews became too nervous to perform routine maintenance. Officers requested transfers to safer sectors. Some vessels simply stopped reporting altogether, their crews too frightened to leave port. On Vorthak Prime, General Zephyr received reports of the growing crisis with increasing anger. How can our entire military be paralyzed? By a few observation ships? He demanded during another emergency council meeting. It is not just the ships, Admiral Velthis explained. It is what they represent. Our crews know that humans defeated Admiral Krikstal's fleet with ease. Now they see human vessels everywhere, watching and waiting. They feel like prey animals being stalked by predators. "We are the predators!" Zephyr roared. "We are Vorthak! We do not cower from lesser species!" Tell that to the crews who have seen human ships appear and disappear at will, Admiral Morketh replied quietly. Tell that to the officers who know. Their shields and weapons are useless against human technology. General Zephyr studied the reports spread across the war table. In just 2 weeks, the human presence had reduced the operational capacity of the Imperial fleet by 30%. Ships were afraid to leave port, crews were deserting, and the Empire's iron grip on its territory was beginning to weaken. How? "Many human ships are we dealing with?" he asked. "Unknown," Velthis replied. "They appear and disappear so quickly that we cannot get accurate counts. Conservative estimates suggest at least 50 vessels, but the actual number could be much higher. Where are they coming from? Also unknown. We have increased patrols along all known routes to human space, but the observation ships continue to appear throughout our territory. Either they have bases we have not detected, or their range is far greater than we estimated." General Zephyr made his decision. "Prepare the World Breaker for immediate deployment. We will take the fight directly to human space. We will destroy their homeworld and end this threat once and for all." "Sir," Admiral Morketh said carefully, "perhaps we should consider diplomatic options. The humans have shown they prefer negotiation to destruction." "Negotiation is weakness," Zephyr replied. "The Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. We conquer them." Unknown to the Vorthak High Command, Captain Soman's ship Daegu Shadow hung in orbit directly above their capital city, its advanced stealth systems making it completely invisible to Imperial sensors. Her crew monitored every communication, recorded every meeting, and transmitted detailed intelligence reports back to human command. The Vorthak were planning to deploy their most powerful weapon against humanity. But humanity already knew about it, and they were ready. The psychological warfare had achieved its purpose. The Vorthak Empire was afraid, confused, and making desperate decisions. Now it was time for the next phase of the plan. The World Breaker emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a mountain of black metal and death. The massive vessel stretched nearly 5 miles from bow to stern, its hull bristling with weapons designed to crack planets and boil oceans. Behind it came the largest Vorthak fleet ever assembled, 200 warships representing the combined might of the entire empire. General Zephyr stood on the bridge of the World Breaker, his 8-foot frame dwarfed by the massive command center that surrounded him. The bridge was built like a fortress, with thick armor plating and backup systems for every critical function. This ship had been designed for one purpose: the complete destruction of entire worlds. General, we have arrived at the human homeworld system, reported Fleet Admiral Kesseton, the World Breaker's commanding officer. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple planets and extensive orbital infrastructure. Zephyr studied the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. The human system looked exactly like what he had expected from a primitive species: a few planets with basic orbital stations and scattered defensive platforms. "What about their defensive fleet?" he asked. "Sensors detect approximately 30 vessels in the inner system. Most appear to be cargo ships or civilian transports. We count perhaps 8 military vessels near their home world." 8 ships, Zephyr repeated with amusement. "They send 8 ships to defend their entire homeworld against 200 Imperial warships and the World Breaker itself. Perhaps they are more confident in their technology than they should be," suggested Admiral Kesseton. "Or perhaps they are simply foolish. Begin the attack. Target their orbital stations first, then move to planetary bombardment. I want their homeworld reduced to molten rock within the hour." The Vorthak fleet began its approach toward the inner system with the confidence of absolute superiority. The World Breaker's massive engines created brilliant streams of energy that could be seen from millions of miles away. This was not a stealth attack. This was a demonstration of Imperial power that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. As they drew closer to Earth, more details became visible on the tactical displays. The human homeworld was a blue and green sphere covered with cities and agricultural areas. Several large space stations orbited the planet, along with what appeared to be defensive platforms. "General," Sensor Officer Nathek reported, "we are detecting unusual energy readings from the 3rd planet's moon." "Their moon?" "Yes, sir. The energy signatures suggest some form of industrial activity, but the scale is difficult to believe." Zephyr frowned and called up detailed scans of Earth's moon. What he saw made no sense. The entire surface of the lunar body appeared to have been converted into some kind of massive installation. Geometric patterns covered the gray surface, and energy readings indicated power generation on a scale that rivaled small stars. "What is that?" he asked. "Unknown, General. The power output alone suggests technology far beyond what we observed in the Kepler encounter." Before Zephyr could respond, proximity alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. On the tactical display, new contacts were appearing everywhere. Ships materialized from what had appeared to be empty space surrounding the Vorthak fleet in a perfect sphere of firepower. "How many?" Zephyr demanded. "Counting now, sir. 100, 200, 500. General, I am reading over 800 human vessels. 800 ships." The number was impossible. The entire Vorthak Empire possessed fewer than 300 warships, and they had brought 2/3 of their fleet to this battle. "Sir," Communications Officer Vrex announced, "we are being hailed by the human fleet." On screen, the view screen activated to show a human male with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a simple military uniform with insignia that suggested high rank. "General Zephyr, I am Admiral Tae-hyun of Earth Defense Command. You have entered our space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces and return to Vorthak territory." "Admiral," Zephyr replied with barely controlled rage, "you face the combined might of the Vorthak Empire. We have come to destroy your homeworld and end your interference in Imperial affairs. Surrender now, and we may allow some of your population to survive as slaves." Admiral Tae-hyun's expression did not change. "General, you came to the wrong neighborhood." The communication ended. Zephyr turned to his weapons officer with deadly calm. "All ships, open fire. Destroy everything." The Vorthak fleet unleashed the most devastating barrage in the history of their empire. 200 warships and the mighty Worldbreaker poured enough firepower into space to destroy entire star systems. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion missiles filled the void with deadly energy. The human ships began to move. What happened next was beyond the comprehension of every Vorthak officer present. The human vessels moved through the storm of weapons fire as if it were nothing more than a light breeze. Their ships twisted and turned with impossible grace, avoiding shots that should have been unavoidable while returning fire with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Sir," Tactical Officer Grexmon reported with growing panic, "our targeting systems cannot lock onto the human vessels. They are moving in patterns that our computers cannot predict. Keep firing." "Sir, we are firing continuously. The human ships are avoiding every shot." On the tactical display, the human fleet was performing maneuvers that defied everything the Vorthak knew about space combat. Ships accelerated at impossible speeds, changed direction without slowing down, and seemed to know where every Vorthak weapon would fire before the shots were taken. Then, the humans opened fire. The first Vorthak cruiser to fall was the Destroyer, a veteran warship that had participated in dozens of planetary conquests. Strange blue-white beams lanced out from 3 human vessels, striking the cruiser's hull with surgical precision. The massive ship simply came apart, its structure failing, as if the metal itself had forgotten how to hold together. "What kind of weapons are those?" Zephyr demanded. "Unknown, General. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The beams appear to disrupt molecular bonds at the atomic level." More Vorthak ships began falling. The humans targeted engines and weapons systems with perfect accuracy, disabling vessels rather than destroying them. But when ships continued to fire after being disabled, the human response was swift and final. "Sir," Admiral Kesatan reported, "we have lost 30% of the fleet. The Worldbreaker is taking fire." Zephyr felt the massive ship shudder as human weapons struck its armored hull. Alarms sounded throughout the bridge as damage reports flooded in from all sections. "Impossible," he growled. "Nothing can penetrate the Worldbreaker's armor." "Sir," The human weapons are cutting through our hull plating like it was paper. We have breaches on all decks. On the view screen, Zephyr could see human ships darting around the world breaker like insects around a dying giant. Their weapons fired. Continuously, each shot placed with perfect precision to disable critical systems without destroying the ship entirely. "Sir," Sensor Officer Nathek called out, "the lunar installation is powering up." "What?" "The human moon, sir. Energy readings are increasing exponentially. On the tactical display, Earth's moon began to glow with brilliant light. The geometric patterns on its surface were revealed to be massive weapon arrays, each one larger than an entire Vorthak warship. "General," Admiral Kessatan said quietly, "I recommend immediate withdrawal. We do not retreat from inferior species." "Sir, we are not fighting an inferior species. We are fighting something far beyond our capabilities." As if to emphasize his point, one of the lunar weapon arrays fired. A beam of pure energy lanced across space, striking the Vorthak battleship Annihilator. The massive vessel simply vanished, converted to energy in less than a second. "Retreat," Zephyr whispered. "Sir, retreat," he roared. "All ships, immediate withdrawal to hyperspace." The surviving Vorthak vessels began their desperate flight from the human system. Many did not make it. Human ships pursued them with relentless efficiency, disabling engines and trapping ships that tried to escape. The mighty world breaker, pride of the Vorthak Empire, limped toward the hyperspace jump point with half its systems offline and its hull torn open in dozens of places. Behind it, the remains of the Imperial fleet struggled to follow. Of the 200 ships that had entered the Sol system, fewer than 50 escaped. The rest were either destroyed or captured by human forces. General Zephyr slumped in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the complete destruction of his fleet. The World Breaker, the ship that was supposed to destroy worlds, had been defeated by an enemy it could not touch. "How?" he asked the empty air. "How is this possible?" Admiral Taehyun's voice filled the bridge one final time as the World Breaker prepared to jump to hyperspace. "General Zephyr, return to your empire. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that Earth is protected, and any further attacks will be met with force. The age of Vorthak dominance is over." As the World Breaker entered hyperspace and fled toward home, General Zephyr realized that everything he had believed about Vorthak's superiority was a lie. There were species in the galaxy far more advanced and far more dangerous than his empire had ever imagined. The captured Vorthak officers found themselves in a place they had never expected to see. Instead of the dark prison cells or torture chambers they had prepared themselves for, they were sitting in comfortable quarters aboard the human command ship Sol Station. The walls were painted in soft colors. The furniture was designed for comfort, and medical staff had treated their injuries with care that seemed impossible from an enemy. Admiral Krikstal sat across from Captain Velcor in what the humans called a conference room. Through the large windows, they could see the blue and green curve of Earth below them. It was beautiful in a way that made them both uncomfortable. They had come here expecting to destroy this world, and now they were guests aboard one of its defenders. I do not understand these humans, Velcor said quietly. We attacked their colonies, destroyed their ships, and tried to conquer their homeworld. Yet they treat us like honored visitors. Perhaps it is some form of psychological warfare, Krixtal replied, though he did not sound convinced. They want us to lower our guard before they begin the real interrogation. The door to the conference room opened, and a human woman entered. She was older than the ship captains they had encountered before, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of many years. She wore a simple uniform with insignia that indicated very high rank. Admiral Krixtal, Captain Velcor, I am Fleet Admiral Yunbi. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I wanted to ensure that all of your wounded crew members received proper medical attention before we spoke. The two Vorthak officers exchanged glances. The human admiral was apologizing to them, to prisoners of war who had tried to destroy her homeworld. Please sit down, Admiral Unby continued, taking a seat across from them. I know you must have many questions about what has happened and what will happen to you. Are we prisoners? Krixtal asked directly. That depends on your definition. You are not free to leave, but you are not confined to cells either. You are guests who will be returned to your people once certain matters are resolved. What matters? Admiral Unby leaned back in her chair, studying the two Vorthak officers with calm eyes. Before I answer that, I want you to understand something important about humanity. We are not conquerors. We never wanted this conflict with your empire. Then why did you attack our fleets? We defended ourselves and others from your attacks. There is a difference, Admiral, though I understand that your empire may not recognize it. Velcor leaned forward. Your technology is far superior to ours. You could have destroyed our worlds, enslaved our people, taken our resources. Why have you not done this? Because that is not who we are, Admiral Yunbi replied simply. May I tell you a story about humanity, Admiral Krixtal? About how we became what we are today? Krixtal nodded, genuinely curious despite himself. 500 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We fought wars that killed billions of our own people. We poisoned our own planet and came close to making it uninhabitable. We were everything that your empire is now. Violent, aggressive, focused only on domination and control. What changed? We learned. We realized that our survival depended not on conquering others, but on cooperating with them. We discovered that our greatest strength came not from our weapons, but from our ability to work together toward common goals. Admiral Yunbi stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. When we first reached the stars, we encountered other species. Some were peaceful, others were aggressive. We made a choice, Admiral. We chose to protect those who could not protect themselves, even at the cost of your own lives, especially at the cost of our own lives. Every human in our space fleet is a volunteer, Admiral. They choose to risk their lives not for conquest or glory, but to ensure that peaceful species can live without fear. The door opened again, and another human entered. This one was younger, with the bearing of a professional soldier. His uniform showed the insignia of a ship captain. Admiral Yunbi. May I introduce myself to our guests? He asked politely. Of course, Captain Deho. The human captain turned to face the Vorthak officers. His expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes that made both aliens uncomfortable. Admiral Krixtal, Captain Velcor, I am Captain Deho. 5 years ago, your empire attacked a research colony in the Kepler system. It was a peaceful scientific station studying stellar formation. The colonists had no weapons, no military value, no strategic importance. Krixtal remembered the incident. It had been a routine patrol action, classified as a minor border enforcement operation. 347 people died in that attack, Captain Deho continued. Scientists, researchers, children. Among them were my wife and my 8-year-old daughter. The conference room fell silent. Both Vorthak officers understood that they were looking at someone who had every reason to hate them, to want revenge against their entire species. I am sorry for your loss, Krixtal said quietly, surprising himself with his sincerity. Thank you, Admiral. But I want you to understand something important. When I joined the Earth Defense Fleet, it was not for revenge. It was to ensure that no other father would lose his family the way I lost mine. You do not want to destroy our empire? I want your empire to change, Admiral. I want it to stop killing innocent people. I want it to become something better than what it is now. Captain. Deho sat down at the table with them. Do you know what we discovered when we began studying your empire, Admiral Krixtal? We found that most Vorthak people are not evil. They are not natural killers or conquerors. They are people who have been taught that strength comes from dominating others. That is the Vorthak way, Velcor replied automatically. Is it? Or is it something that was forced upon your people by leaders who benefited from constant warfare? Admiral Unbi returned to her seat. Admiral, we have been monitoring communications throughout your empire since this conflict began. Do you know what we found? Krixtal shook his head. Fear. Your own people are afraid of the endless wars, the constant taxation to support military, expansion, the loss of their children to imperial service. They want peace, Admiral. They want the chance to build something instead of always destroying. The Empire provides order and stability, Krixtal argued, though his voice lacked conviction. The Empire provides order through fear, Captain Deho corrected. But fear is not strength, Admiral. It is weakness disguised as power. Then what is strength? Admiral Unbi smiled. Would you like to see our strength, Admiral? She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the conference room. Images appeared showing scenes from throughout human space. Cities, filled with people from dozens of different species living and working together. Massive construction projects involving humans and aliens building new worlds and space stations. Scientific research facilities where human and alien scientists worked side by side to unlock the secrets of the universe. This is our strength, Admiral Unbi explained. Not our weapons or our ships, but our ability to inspire others to work with us toward common goals. Every species in these images came to us voluntarily. They chose to join our alliance because we offered them something your empire never could. What? Hope. The chance to build a better future for their children, Captain. Deho leaned forward. Admiral, when human ships patrol this sector, we are not alone. We fly alongside Altarian science vessels, Centaurian medical ships, and Vegan agricultural transports. Our strength comes from unity, not domination. How many species are part of your alliance? Velcor asked. 47 at last count, Admiral, Yunbi replied. Each one chose to join us because they believe in what we are building together. Crixtal studied the holographic images with growing amazement. He saw cities that were works of art, space stations that defied imagination, and most importantly, beings from different worlds working together without fear or hatred. This is what you offer in place of the Empire? He asked. This is what we offer in place of fear, Admiral Yunbi corrected. Your empire can be part of this future, Admiral. Your people can choose cooperation over conquest, building over destroying. The High Command will never accept this. Perhaps not. But the Vorthak people might, if they were given the choice. Captain Deho stood. Admiral, we are going to return you and your crew to Vorthak space. We want you to carry a message to your people. Tell them that humanity offers them an alternative to endless warfare. Tell them that we will defend any species that asks for our protection, but we will also welcome any species that chooses to join us in building a better galaxy. And if our empire chooses to continue the old ways? Admiral Yunbi's expression became serious. Then we will stop you, not out of hatred or revenge, but because we cannot allow innocent people to suffer while we have the power to prevent it. You would destroy our entire civilization? We would change it, she replied firmly. By force if necessary, but preferably through choice. The decision is yours, Admiral. You can return to your people as warriors who were defeated by a superior enemy, or as ambassadors who discovered a path to a better future. Admiral Crixtal looked at the holographic images still floating in the center of the room. For the first time in his 3 centuries of life, he began to imagine what the galaxy might look like without constant warfare. The news reached every corner of the galaxy within days. The Vorthak Empire, the most feared military force in known space, had surrendered to humanity. The announcement was broadcast on every communication channel, transmitted to every world, and discussed in every language spoken among the stars. On Vorthak Prime, Admiral Crixtal stood before the assembled High Command in the same stone chamber where General Zephyr had planned the attack on Earth. But now the room felt different. The shadows seemed less threatening, and the harsh lights no longer emphasized the scars and weapons of the gathered officers. The human terms are simple, Crixtal reported to the silent gathering. Complete cessation of all aggressive military actions, the release of all enslaved populations, the conversion of military resources to peaceful purposes, and most importantly, the choice. Supreme Commander Thraken leaned forward in his ancient chair. What choice? The choice to join the Galactic Cooperative as an equal partner, or to remain isolated in our own territory under human observation. Crixtal paused, looking around the room at faces that had once been filled with confidence and now showed only uncertainty. They are offering us the chance to become something better than what we are. And if we refuse? Asked Admiral Morketh. Then We remain here in our own space, forbidden from expansion, but allowed to govern ourselves. However, any attempt to resume our old practices will be met with immediate intervention. General Zephyr, his massive frame still bearing the injuries from the battle at Earth, spoke from his position at the far end of the table. They defeated our entire fleet without destroying it. They could have killed us all, but they chose not to. Why? Because that is not who they are, Krixtal replied, remembering his conversations with Admiral Yunbi. They do not conquer, General. They protect. There is a difference. The debate that followed lasted for days. Some officers argued for continued resistance, believing that the Vorthak could rebuild their military and strike again. Others suggested accepting isolation and maintaining their traditional way of life in their own territory. But slowly, a third option began to gain support, the option that Admiral Krixtal presented to them repeatedly: change. I have seen their worlds, he told the assembled commanders. I have seen species that once hated each other working together to build things that benefit everyone. I have seen former enemies become allies, former slaves become partners. You speak like one of them now, Admiral Velthis observed. Perhaps I do, but I have also seen what we could become if we chose to change. Our people are tired of war, tired of losing their children to military service, tired of living in fear of rebellion or invasion. The humans offer us something we have never had. What? Peace. Real peace. Not the silence that comes from crushing all opposition, but the peace that comes from having nothing to fight about. On distant worlds throughout what had once been Vorthak territory, the news of the Empire's surrender was received with cautious hope. Species that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries began to imagine life without tribute payments, without mandatory military service, without the constant fear of Imperial retribution. The humans did not wait for the Vorthak decision to begin implementing changes. Within weeks of the surrender, human ships began arriving at former Imperial worlds not as conquerors, but as liberators and helpers. Captain Jinwu, the same officer who had first faced Admiral Krixtal in the Kepler system, found himself commanding a relief mission to the Altair colonies. His ship, the Soul's Pride, carried medical supplies, construction equipment, and most importantly, teachers and administrators who could help the newly freed populations govern themselves. Captain, his communications officer reported, we are receiving a message from the Altair Provisional Government. They are requesting a meeting with our diplomatic team. Set up the meeting, Jinwu replied, and make sure our medical team is ready to assist with their wounded. From what I understand, the Vorthak occupation was particularly harsh in this system. As the Soul's Pride approached Altair Prime, Jinwu could see the scars of Imperial rule everywhere. Orbital platforms that had once been used to monitor and control the population hung like broken teeth around the planet. The surface showed the geometric patterns of strip mining operations and industrial complexes built without regard for environmental impact. But there were also signs of hope. New construction was already beginning in several cities. Agricultural areas that had been converted to military installations were being restored to farmland. Most importantly, the communication channels were filled with messages of gratitude and requests for assistance rather than the fear and hatred that usually followed military occupation. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of what had once been Imperial space, other changes were taking place. Species that had been enemies for generations were meeting under human mediation to discuss peace treaties and trade agreements. The Zalani, who had suffered under Vorthak raids for decades, were working with former Imperial colonies to establish mutual defense pacts. Ambassador Naeon, the head of the Human Diplomatic Corps, found herself busier than she had ever imagined possible. Her office aboard the diplomatic vessel, Harmony, was constantly filled with representatives from dozens of species, all seeking help in rebuilding their worlds and their relationships with their neighbors. Ambassador, her aide reported during one particularly busy day, we have requests for diplomatic assistance from 17 different systems. The Centaurians want help negotiating mining rights with the Vegans. The Rigel colonies are asking for mediation in their border disputes. And the former Vorthak administrative worlds want guidance on establishing democratic governments. Set up the meetings, Naeon replied with a smile, and contact Admiral Taehyun. We're going to need more diplomatic ships. Back on Vorthak Prime, the final decision was being made. Admiral Krixtal stood once again before the High Command, but this time the atmosphere was different. The old arrogance and aggression had been replaced by something that looked almost like hope. The vote is unanimous, Supreme Commander Thraken announced. The Vorthak Empire formally requests membership in the Galactic Cooperative. The words that followed would be remembered throughout galactic history. The most feared military empire in known space was voluntarily dissolving itself and asking to join a peaceful alliance of worlds. The transformation was not immediate or easy. Generations of military culture could not be changed overnight. But, gradually, with human help and guidance, Vorthak society began to evolve. Military academies were converted to universities. Weapons factories were retooled to produce construction equipment and medical supplies. Former Imperial officers found themselves working alongside the same species they had once conquered. Admiral Krixtal became one of the most vocal advocates for the new way of life. Working alongside Captain Jinwoo, he helped establish new protocols for peaceful contact between species. The two former enemies became partners in creating a galaxy where military might was no longer the measure of a civilization's worth. 1 year after the surrender, a new ship was launched from the joint human-Vorthak shipyards in the neutral zone. The vessel New Dawn was crewed by both species and commanded jointly by Captain Sunho, a human officer who had participated in the defense of Earth, and Commander Veltar, a young Vorthak who had chosen cooperation over conquest. The New Dawn's first mission took them to the edge of explored space, where a primitive species called the Coraxians was under attack by raiders from unknown space. As the joint patrol ship approached the battle, the attacking vessels immediately ceased fire and began to withdraw. "Unknown vessel, this is Coraxian Defense Force," came the transmission. "Thank you for your assistance, but we did not call for help." Captain Sunho smiled as he replied, "Coraxian Defense Force, this is the patrol ship New Dawn. We are part of the Galactic Cooperative's peacekeeping force. We did not come because you called for help. We came because someone needed help. The raider ships, seeing the distinctive markings of the cooperative fleet, fled toward the edge of the system. They had heard the stories of what happened to those who attacked peaceful species under cooperative protection. Commander Veltar studied the sensor readings of the retreating ships. Captain, those appear to be Vortan raiders. They have been operating in this sector for months, attacking anyone too weak to defend themselves. Then we followed them back to their base and shut down their operation, Sunho replied calmly. The old way was to ignore raiders as long as they did not threaten Imperial interests. The new way is to stop them because it is the right thing to do. As the New Dawn pursued the raiders, its crew worked with the same precision and purpose that had once characterized the Vorthak military. But now that precision served a different goal. Instead of conquest and domination, they fought for justice and protection. The raiders' base was located on a barren asteroid in an uninhabited system. The New Dawn approached carefully, scanning for defenses and civilian populations. Their mission was to stop the raids, not to destroy everything in sight. Captain, Commander Veltar reported, sensors indicate approximately 200 raiders on the asteroid base, along with what appears to be a large number of prisoners. Prisoners?